It's 6:30 PM, and I'd like to call the Tuesday, December 7th, 2021 meeting of the East Bay Township Planning Commission to order. Before we cite the Pledge of Allegiance, we'd like to have a moment of silence in commemoration of December 7th, 1941, 80 years of Pearl Harbor. So if you please stand, moment of silence, and then Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start with roll call.
Sure. Leonard,
Here.
Gonzalez,
Here.
Nimitz,
Here.
Ferguson,
Here.
Bartlett,
Yes.
Edley,
Here.
Syke.
Here. We have the agenda for the Planning Commission meeting here. If there's any review for any conflict of interest regarding any of the items that are on the agenda. Okay. Seeing none, is there any, we have review and approval of the actual agenda. If there's any consideration for approving that.
Also move to approve the agenda of December 7, 2021.
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the agenda for December 7th, 2021. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. The agenda is approved. We have minutes prepared for November 9th, 2021. We have regular minutes and we have site visit minutes from that date. So I believe we take those separately.
I'd like to make a correction.
Sure.
On the regular minutes, page 3, under number 5, public comment began with Vice Chair Leonard opening, but it ends with Chair Syke closing, and that should be corrected.
Oh,
I
should be,
noticed that too.
should be Leonard.
He wasn't here.
Yeah.
You were good, John.
Got it.
Other than that, I'd move to approve the minutes of the November 9th meeting.
Support that. Okay, we got a motion to approve and second it. So that does not include the site plan review minutes, correct? Or do we include those? Okay, so would that be also included as both?
Yes.
Okay. So a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of November 9th, 2021, including the site visit meetings. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We are now moving on to public comment, and this is our first opportunity for public comment for the meeting. There is a second time for public comment that is going to be after the items under business. So if there's any public comment, you're welcome to come to the podium, state your name and address, and provide us with any of your comments. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody with providing any public comments, so we'll move on, and we'll start with reports. And Tracy?
Yeah, we haven't met yet since the last time this board met, so I really don't have anything, other than taxes went out. Thank you.
Got him.
Okay, Zoning Board of Appeals?
Yeah, we had a meeting, but that meeting was postponed at the request of the attorneys. They wanted to have the full board. We only had 3 members for that meeting, and they wanted to have the full ZBA at the next meeting.
Okay. Planning and Zoning Department.
Okay. I only have just one quick update, just a quick reminder, this is my last week of work, so Preston will be your main point of contact for anything Planning Commission related. He'll be, helping coordinate packets, correspondence, and Sarah Capriva will be assisting with all the site plan reviews, so she's in the process of reviewing the GO-REC application, and so she'll be attending your special meeting next week for the GO-REC, so.
Okay, correspondence. We did receive some items of correspondence from the Watershed Center related to the Stellar application, a letter from Heather Smith of the Watershed Center. Also, a letter from Haggard's regarding support of Stellar, and then Dana Kowal regarding Lakemore. And then we also did receive a letter regarding the Brigantine Apartments. This is a letter from the attorney related to the Crystal Ridge Condominium Association. Okay, and I guess with that, we'll move on to business. We have a resolution to establish our 2022 regular meeting dates for the Planning Commission.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-4 PC for the meeting minutes for 2022.
Okay.
I'll support that.
We have a motion by Bartlett, seconded by Leonard, to approve the resolution for the meeting dates for 2022. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that resolution passes. We also have in our packet the 2021 annual report. This is a draft for consideration. This is for the Planning and Zoning Department, including the activities that were undertaken for 2021, and then this is intended to be presented to the town board. Any comments, or?
I have a comment. On page 12, where it says, appeal, the first appeal at 4403 Gray Lake, it's LA front setback, and then the second appeal on 5/10/21 says Boardman River. I think that should be LA, because it's in the lakes area. You see that?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. And then, page 13, where it says miscellaneous land use permits, what would be a miscellaneous permit?
That's a question for Leslie.
Yeah, it would be mostly decks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's mostly decks. We don't have a deck category.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. So that's done though through through the building website page,
Through Epic,
right?
yes.
Right, okay, all right, yeah, and then the last page, let me think here, hold on. Where is that? I think it kind of just ends. Looking ahead, did you mean it to staff also looks forward to
Must have gotten sidetracked.
well, tell me what you're looking forward to.
Having a baby.
I'd like to know.
Looking
So
forward to Friday.
I think we're looking forward to working with MEDC because we've got some funding for
Okay.
for the zoning ordinance update. We're looking at getting the majority of that funded through MEDC through the RRC program, so.
I thought you were looking forward to working with the Planning Commission, but that's okay. I'll take MEDC. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you know what, and that's the other piece, is that we are planning to put together a kind of ad hoc or steering committee of some planning commission representatives, as well as some other representatives to work through the ordinance. Because I don't anticipate doing monthly work sessions with the planning commission, the way that we've done with the master plan. I think that we'll definitely check in regularly, so that will be kind of to be determined in 2022.
Thank you. That's it.
Any other comments?
I have a question. Just because I thought of this today with regards to the Brigantine, but is there, can you put on here, like, how many housing units we have these approvals?
Yeah.
Because I think that would be helpful as we're going forward and looking, you know, like I'd like to know the ones that have been approved that, you know, collectively, how many housing units, individual homes.
Okay,
So,
yep, that's
thank
good
you.
feedback. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, staff has provided with us with a possible action in the report. Entertain any type of motion to take action on the annual report?
Also move to approve the annual report with the corrections. Do you want me to list those, or do you just want me to say with the corrections?
I think with the corrections as,
It will suffice? Okay, with the corrections, as stated.
I'll support.
okay. Got a motion from Nemet, support by Ferguson to recommend the annual report with those corrections to the Board of Trustees. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll move on. We have, staff has provided us with a report. I don't think I wasn't at the previous meeting, so I'm not quite sure what the full discussion was at that point, but there was, the Planning Commission directed staff to at least initiate some review of the zoning ordinance currently to anticipate how to deal with multiple uses or combination of uses on one particular property. In this case, it was related to PGO's restaurant, and in that particular location where it's zoned local business and accommodates the restaurant, but if there was opportunity for them to provide some form of residential, would that be able to work into some site like that? So we do have what staff has provided here for us in terms of the idea of a combination of uses, and if there's any comments, or I don't know if you wanted to go over this, Claire, if you had any?
I could just real briefly. So one thing I'd say is this isn't the first time that this has come up with applicants that are interested in some sort of commercial or maybe a property that's larger, like many acres, for example, like the Conservancy, when we were first working with them and they were trying to figure out would a PUD be appropriate, or are they a combination of like educational facility and place of public assembly or something like that. So I would say that this is kind of something that I've seen over the last couple of years where development or application fits multiple uses, and so maybe it would be more appropriate to process them as a use permitted by right or special land use permit as opposed to a PUD. Under the current ordinance, combination of uses is permitted in 3 commercial districts, in East Bay Corners, Regional Business District, and Professional Office. The Planning Commission could consider allowing combination of uses, maybe through special land use permit in all districts, or maybe there would be like a minimum parcel size for combination of uses, or maybe just in all commercial districts. And so you could add to what is currently allowed, also add industrial, airport service, local business to the existing commercial businesses. So, and we can, just based on direction, staff would, I think the next step would be staff would draft ordinance amendment language based on feedback from the Planning Commission if this was something you wanted to take a closer look at.
Any thoughts from anybody?
Yeah, my vote would be to allow it only in the commercial areas.
I would second that.
Is there a downside to allowing it by right as opposed to, in some kind of special land use permit?
I think, so the way that it's handled right now is it is a use by right if those two uses are uses by right in the district. If there's one use that's a special land use permit in that district and one is a use by right, then it would be processed as a special land use permit. So it'd probably just depend on the district and what uses were permitted. I was thinking special land, if it was permitted in residential, I think special land use permit would probably be appropriate regardless.
Yeah, I'm constantly trying to push for that mix of use everywhere we go. If the commercial place is already one where there's traffic in and out, the community knows what's going on in that space, it's already zoned that, we're not rezoning anything. It makes sense to me so long as, I think about, in their particular case, being a patron, the parking is just, it's at capacity a lot of the time. So if they're gonna have additional use, like let's dedicate some spaces, just like, one per unit kind of a thing in my mind, for residential purposes, if those folks are in and out, it's just, that's pretty normal from what we see in other, developments that we look at around all our other standards. So long as, to me, the uses could be, I would hate to limit them to just on the site. Like, if they were to do a mixed-use building, to me, it just kind of makes sense in a commercial landscape. If they're separate buildings, I don't really see a drawback there either, as long as everybody can safely access, egress the site itself. So, yeah, I'm totally supportive of it, but I think I'm reading the tea leaves. I think I'm more of a use by right kind of a attitude than a special use, because to me, we're already talking about I think a residential impact is much lesser than that of a commercial. And so long as they can fit it on the site reasonably, I don't think I'd have an issue with that. I don't know why it'd be an issue, but, that's just my flavor.
One thing that's interesting in local business, just related to PGOs, is that a single-family home requires a special land use permit. And I'm not sure the reasoning behind that, but.
So that would be if somebody wanted to build a home in a commercial district, that would require a special use permit? Okay.
Similar to
That's-
regional business district requires special land use.
But we would call this
Okay.
a
Multifamily is not allowed in local business, and single-family is. So this is the only option PGOs would have, would be to do a single-family through special land use permit if a combination of uses was permitted.
Oh, that's,
Unless we change the ordinance, which would be definitely something to explore.
And that could turn into a short-term rental, right?
Back door.
Yeah, if it was if it was just a standard single-family home, my understanding is that's not their intent, but yes, absolutely, there's nothing in our ordinance that would preclude that.
But even so, the applicant, and I know they're here tonight, I don't think their intent was to house one person either.
Right, they were looking
Right.
for a
Multiple.
single-family home with multiple rooms, and they're welcome to come on too.
Right.
They can speak.
Right. And when I think about like not just their parcel, but then think about Olson's, right? In the infill development that's yet to take place, so are we gonna say that they can only have one single family like on that same lot? Like, that's not apples to apples. Nor is it gonna help our conundrum. So I'm thinking just, is there a way for us to open this up a little bit more, have more of a dialogue? Because I get their individual request, but then it has implications across the rest of the commercial districts, right? And if our intent is to add housing, we keep talking about it, one single-family house isn't going to address the issue on these pieces. And more times than not, I would say from an efficiency standpoint, they happen to have a secondary structure, but in the case of new construction, they're going to likely be building above what's there. So I'd rather put like a density calculation like we do in other zoning categories based on the size of the property. So that we have like, I'm just making this up, say there's 4 units per acre or whatever that ends up being. Maybe it's even more, I'm not sure because it's already so dense. But in the instance of other zoning categories, I think of intensity of use in commercial being more like our high-density residential, like in terms of the amount of traffic it's going to generate and what that's going to do to neighborhoods and things of that nature. A commercial business is going to have that constant flow of traffic in and out of it. People are going to be used to it, even though it's in kind of a residential-ish area for their case. But in the case of the Olsons or the 3 Mile Corridor, that's just business as usual. So I guess I'm not landing on a density calculation, but I'd hate for it to be a one unit
And like
improvement.
East Bay Corners where Olson's is, I believe, multifamily is permitted, same with Airport Service District. So those would all be combination of uses where you could certainly do.
Right. But I don't know
Multifamily.
that that would necessarily go for the industrial. I mean, I'm not sure that a residential use in the industrial parks is what we're trying to go for.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm not sure that putting that particular mixed use in an industrial district would be appropriate.
Yeah, I would agree on that. I don't have any problem with residential being in commercial so long that it's seen as more of an accessory use.
Right.
So it's not, we want our commercial areas to be able to prosper, and so we don't want them overwhelmed by the residential, but I can see, whether it's above or behind or to accommodate it in some ways, I think it's fine. There are ideas of that nature, like live-work units. There's, it's not unusual to have some amount of residential in the commercial district. I would agree on the industrial one, because you want industrial uses to be industrial, to not have to worry about complaints if there's noise or odors or vibrations or whatever like that because of the activity. That's the last thing you want is, some residential element there complaining about it, and so that precludes the ability for them to do their business. But I think in commercial areas, I would agree, it allows for a good mix. I don't know if there's necessarily to have a density requirement. I think it's more about location and what's the correlation in terms of where that residential is located. But I would,
Well, and would it be, kind of thinking about what Dan was talking about, the density, but we have a size requirement for a resident, for residential. So yeah, I'm thinking, if you look at the strip mall over here next to Olson's, if they put housing on top of that, I mean, you're already at a size. I don't know how many units you could put in based on our size, but I don't know if that makes sense to look at it that way either.
I mean, just reading the tea leaves here, are you guys comfortable with kind of the multifamily aspect of it? Or are you stuck on a single-family aspect of it? Like, to me, I'm kind of in the camp of let's try to put as many units as they can kind of fit in that. I don't think it would harm the character of what's surrounding it. I don't know how we mitigate the number that we would do in a multifamily setting anyway, other than the density calculation that's underneath based on the size of the land. I guess that's where I was going with that.
I mean, one thing you could do is the density of what would be similar to like a multifamily district and apply that. So it has a similar density.
Yeah, yeah.
That might be the best way. So for instance, it might be like you have to have like 4,000 square feet per unit or whatever, or something like that. Whatever our density requirement is for multifamily is just apply that same,
Like in East Bay Corners right now, we allow up to 8 dwelling units per acre.
Per acre.
okay. So something like that.
How many acres are we talking about on their site? Do you know off the top of your head?
Just over 1.
Just over one?
No, there's two.
Oh, or two, there's 2 parcels.
Yeah.
So
It's
is,
over 2 acres.
that was one of my questions, and I didn't know if we were talking specifically about PGOs tonight or not. So if they're on 2 separate properties, wouldn't the single family be able to operate?
Well, both buildings are on the same parcel.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't look up the the split, how it was divided, so, okay.
But even so, I think they could probably tie for purposes of like a site plan approval, both of them into the same application, I would think. So I don't think there'd be any loss there of counting the other for density purposes, but
Right.
I think so long as we get consistency, I really like just tying it back to the underlying multifamily. That makes sense, and I think it'd fit their needs, and I don't think it'd hurt anything throughout the rest of the township, but
So are you saying 8 per acre?
I think that's where they were at.
It's, actually, I think for multifamily, it's kind of low, actually, but that's what that would give us a good way to measure that, so.
Yeah, our highest density is the manufactured housing / high density is up to 12. So that's the highest density that we've got in the township. Right now, we allow multifamily and regional business district with no density maximum. So it's special land use permit, but you theoretically can have as high a density as would be permitted through building height and setbacks and stuff.
And then how much do we, what's the density of a pocket neighborhood? And where is that on our zoning map?
Pocket neighborhoods, I thought we put in like that.
Did we
It's like a
put-
development tool, so it's
Oh,
not,
okay.
there's nothing
All right.
zoned pocket neighborhood right now.
All right.
Any other thoughts or comments? So staff is looking for some direction. It sounds like we have some ideas on how to pursue this in terms of maybe developing some ordinance language. Sounds like we're all pretty comfortable with the idea of having some amount of residential and commercial districts.
One clarification, would you be supportive of just basically allowing combination of uses in every commercial district, and then also some residential? Because that would allow, a couple different commercial operations or to be located on one development site. One
not-
example.
I'm not clear on that.
So one example would just be the Stellar development right now. You've got 2 hotels, and then you've got the retail drive-through. So that allows a combination of uses on that development site. We have other commercial districts that don't allow combination of uses. So it makes it a little bit challenging sometimes when a developer has a larger development site.
Is that based on size of the site, Claire, or is that?
It could be. Right now in the ordinance, combination of uses is just allowed in 3 of the commercial districts, but not in the other 3.
Oh, interesting.
And I thought that are you talking about the other 3? We talked about the other 3 other than industrial, right?
I think it was local business,
Okay.
airport services,
And industrial.
and industrial.
See, in the industrial, I guess, are we looking at combination of uses more than just a residential use? So,
Yeah, it would be probably just what's permitted in industrial would be the only combination they could use.
okay. Yeah. it's-
Currently, that's what? Because as I'm hearing you, you're saying that we would allow for, quote, "a residential use" other than in an industrial area?
What
Just in the commercial areas?
In the commercial areas, I believe they all allow some element of residential use, and so,
Ju- oh.
but industrial does not. So my understanding, direction from the Planning Commission would be, in the industrial district, there could be a combination of uses, and only the uses listed as permitted in industrial would be those
Okay.
combination options.
Okay. So then we'd
No
be
residential.
expanding it only to the, local business and then the airport services?
Airport Services already has multifamily residential in it.
But it doesn't explicitly say a combination of uses.
Right, no, yeah, I understand that. The three did. Which is funny, because I think when we put together the airport services, that was the
Supposed to be kind of
intent.
form.
That was the goal.
Yeah, that was the intent, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like retail on the bottom and housing on the top.
Right.
Yeah.
So that got missed
And there is some reference to mixed-use development
in the airport
in the airport
services.
service.
Yeah.
It's not explicitly stated as.
Yeah, because I was like, I thought that's what we talked about.
Feel like you got a game plan?
Yeah, no, this is helpful, so thank you.
And just because the applicant's here, I'm sorry, I'm still in like chair mode for whatever.
Go for it, Dan.
All right.
I was gonna say, I would love to just hear some feedback from the applicants because they're here, just to get like your take, because you guys brought this up. Does this kind of fit with where you guys were headed?
Got
Does
to
it-
come up to them,
Yeah.
Mike, please.
What, you need a spokesman?
No, you go, you go, no, you go.
George Van Kersen, 325 Birchwood Lane. Obviously, most of you know I started PGOs a long time ago. The help situation has turned into a nightmare. And even if you can get them, they can't get housing. So that's where we're looking at turning the hall into having some bedrooms where we can give them some housing. So we're not looking at building apartment houses, but we definitely are looking to make that building into something that we can put bedrooms in, make it livable.
So my only concern is, it sounds like it's, the multi-use thing is available in other districts within the township on there, so I don't, what makes our district different than that is the question. Sounds like something that could benefit a lot of properties, not just Big
Sir, can I get your name for the record?
Dane Porter, 3699 Forest Drive.
Thank you.
Bay Township, I am one of the new current owners of EVOs. George is
They
just.
they think they are. We know who owns it.
George still around there, so that's where we brought that up, yes, because of the housing situation and the employee situation that we have, and the fact that we have a building now that we can't do anything else with. Our banquet hall, they won't let us use liquor in there, but the MLCC will not let us take our liquor license over there, so it kind of defeats that whole purpose, and even if we could, to be honest, we couldn't staff it anyway. So it's a building without a purpose right now. We're not be able to have a win-win situation. Get some staffing for the restaurant and be able to house them. Plus, we wouldn't have to chase them down if they didn't show up to work. Anybody has any questions on that? Please.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments or thoughts? Okay, do we need a motion on that, or we just kind of get feedback? Yeah, okay. I didn't think so. All right. Let's move on. We have another item, next item under business is SPR 10-21 Brigantine Apartments, discussion and possible action. So Claire, do you want to intro this?
Sure, yeah, and so one thing I just wanted to mention, there's a letter that's on all of your desks. This was received kind of later in the afternoon. Today, it's a letter from legal counsel representing Crystal Ridge, and basically concerns with that non-motorized pedestrian connection that was discussed at the November meeting. I was able to get in touch with Township Legal Counsel. He doesn't have any concerns from a legal standpoint with going ahead and building that pathway to the property line. He said because, we look back at the 2008 approval of the site plan, it shows a pathway going to that property line, but there's nothing legally that says, record with Register of Deeds that pathway is, open to public use. So he said, we'll need to work through from a legal standpoint, maybe whether there's a gate, if Crystal Ridge ends up putting a gate or something up there, that would be kind of more of the legal standpoint. But from a site plan review standpoint, he didn't see any legal concerns with approving it as is with the pathway going to that property line.
Okay.
Also, just wanted to highlight some of the changes that were made based on input from the last meeting. So you'll see that there's the 66-foot right-of-way is preserved through all of the internal circulation, and they also added the 66-foot right-of-way for future connection to that 14-acre parcel to the north as well as to Headwaters. Added quite a bit of landscaping and updated to include more native species. Added some screening along Vanderlip as well as around the trash compactor. They did add a gateway showing the pathway connection to Crystal Ridge, as what was discussed at the last meeting, to kind of differentiate the two developments and pathway. The air conditioning units have been shown on the plan set. We did receive confirmation from Metro Fire that they gave final approval on this, as well as they don't have any concerns with the Headwaters turnaround. They said that the way Headwaters is built right now, they can get a fire engine in and out, so they don't need to use that dirt turnaround that goes onto the Brigantine property. Yeah, I think that's all that I wanted to highlight. I had a few thoughts just on the updated conditions. We had talked a little bit about the traffic impact study. And the staff's recommendation is that, we don't need a traffic impact study to approve the site plan tonight, but the road commission will be requiring a traffic impact study. So if the results of the traffic impact study have any bearing or impact on the site plan, that would come back to planning commission. So if there's any change to, driveway entrance or internal circulation or anything like that, then that would come back to planning commission if there's any recommended changes to the physical site plan.
Okay, thank you. Doug, did you want to make some comments?
Thanks, everyone. Doug Mansfield, Mansfield Land Use Consultants, 830 Cottage View Drive, Suite 201, Traverse City, Michigan. I think the planner pretty much went over it. You missed the dog waste containers that we had on there, and a very educated landscape architect calls them poop bag dispensers. So, yeah, I'll get her for that one, making me say that on TV tonight. I think we appreciated everything. The cameras, great idea for security to incorporate those, so we'll have those on site. We did, if need be, we're ready to switch out the native species. I just want to make the point that those aren't on the invasive species. We're running out of plants, let me tell you. And the issue is, it's really hard to get native northern Michigan plants in a nursery in Michigan. They just don't grow them. So just think about it. Looking at, if it's not on the invasive species, we understand your concerns as East Bay Township, but it's really becoming limiting because everything else is getting every beetle, every disease. We're just running out of trees, and then getting this stuff is really getting hard. Instead of just casting out the issue on the traffic study, let's do a traffic study. Traffic studies are theories. They're done by people downstate that come up and count cars. I will tell you, it's entirely theoretical. We'd rather sit down and spend the money towards improving something. There's nobody north of Saginaw doing them anymore. So we'd rather just sit down with the road commission and say, what do you want? What can we do to improve things? The fact of the matter is, there was originally four entrances to this site, 3 along approved, 3 along 4 Mile, 1 on Vanderlip, where we showed it. So, yes, we have a roundabout, we're still sorting that out as a community, but realistically, it's the same number of units that were proposed going back to the 90s, through the 2000s, and then today. So we, frankly, we'll do whatever the road commission requires to get permits, okay? I think that's about it. We understand about the gated, not gating Vanderlip. So we're looking forward to finalizing things and getting ready for construction in the spring. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I guess at this time, I'd like to hear from the Planning Commission. Any comments? Why don't we just kind of go around? Paul, if you had any comments?
More curiosity question, on the compact, the trash compactor? Is that a staff function, or how does that?
So refuse on almost all the multifamily units now is you put your bag outside your door. Staff picks them up.
Okay.
That allows, understand what that does, is it allows staff to go, okay, we've been picking up these people's garbages, so we know they're taking care of their rooms, and these kind of things.
We haven't picked any.
Yeah, we haven't picked up any there, what's going on, so that's a big deal. And the other thing is you don't have it off the side, near the side, it goes in the compactor, and what goes in there is monitored, but it's all staff maintained,
Okay,
okay?
thank you, that's all.
Carl, you have any comments?
No, I think the changes that they made are good. I appreciate that, and I think it looks good.
Judy?
Doug, I really liked your little gateway. That portico or gateway thing is really, really nice. And I thank you and Petra for working
Yep.
with me on the invasive species. So I know it is difficult, especially this time of year, but, you're doing a good job. So thank you for doing that. Also, I have a couple of questions for Claire first. When we talk about any earth movement not completed within the site, is there a performance bond on that too? So if the earth is moved, we have money to put it back?
I think in talking with Petra, and she had a recommendation to put for the language to say, as opposed to being sodded, just saying stabilize with seed and mulch, install erosion control blanket on slopes greater than 3 to 1. So, and I think that's the language that's generally used by soil erosion. So we could put some sort of performance guarantee into place, and the Planning Commission does have that ability as a part of site plan review to require a performance guarantee. So.
Our side of it is soil erosion already requires, I'm going to say it's between $1,000 and $2,000 an acre surety. And this is not a bond, it is a letter of credit or cash put in the county. So if something's not done, they can force you to clean it up. And there being that the county is a soil erosion agent that East Bay Township has contracted with, we think that money is best left there.
So, and I think the difference, some of our sites that we had along US 31, they were not in violation of soil erosion. So we got in touch with soil erosion. They said everything looks okay from soil erosion. It's not actively, a concern. So then that bond wasn't used. But I think if we have a condition in here that would require the applicant to take those actions, otherwise their site plan would no longer be meeting the conditions of their site plan.
As long as the township feels like we have something in place and it's protected, that we can get the earth back, that we don't have a lot of problems, I'm good with that. I just bring it to your attention so that we're clear on making sure we can get that back in order. And then the contaminated area, in Faith Souza's little note, it said something about parking roads, storage unit. And there's a garbage compactor and a garage there. Does that meet that criteria?
That would be my interpretation, is that
Okay.
they are part of the storage,
Okay.
storage facilities.
And there'll be little earth movement to disturb that contaminated area and little usage that, there won't be tons of people. I mean, because that's what it kind of says from Faith.
Capping it is what they want to have happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last thing, Doug, that on the elevations, I see that, off the patios, you have the mechanical room. But where are the air conditioning compressors and units? I don't see those on the site plan. I don't see any screening for
They're
those.
Actually, I think on the land.
Did I miss it? I'm sorry. My eyes are getting old.
We didn't detail it.
They're on it's a plan view. They're on the plan view. Can't tell you the page.
I see mechanical, but I didn't see where the compressors are on the outside.
Yeah, it's,
It's actually on sheet L1.1, the landscape plan.
Oh, okay.
In the lower right-hand page, you'll see a plan view of the buildings.
Okay.
And there's actually, the way the patios work, there's the mechanical room, then there's the patio, then there's actually a screen wall to the patio to the next unit. Those air conditioners sit in between there, the condensers.
Oh, the condensers do?
Yep,
Okay, so they're kind of screened in between the two patios?
yep, and tucked into the buildings, so they're not projected from the building.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's it.
Dan, you got comments?
I'm good. I appreciate the feedback and the response to everybody's questions. I think it's a good layout, good plan, so appreciate it.
Renee?
I'm all set.
Christine?
I'm good. I just have, I had one question. Is there fencing around the stormwater basin
No.
down by the dog park?
No. We're only required to do fencing when it's a certain angle of slope.
Okay, that's what I was going to
Yeah.
ask, how,
We get beyond, I think it's 1 on 4
Okay.
side slopes, that's when people.
so there's a requirement.
Yes.
I just didn't know.
Yeah. And there's a depth requirement.
Okay,
Yeah, there's a series of them. We don't like to do that because it becomes very mechanical looking. It
Right.
also traps debris in the
Yeah.
fence and things like that, so it becomes.
yeah, I just know me as a kid would have rode my bike
Oh.
into those, that would have
When
been.
my dad found the mayonnaise jar full of tadpoles that we collected, yeah.
Yep.
A year later.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah.
okay. And I'm assuming like the fire hydrants and stuff would be turned over to,
The extensions and municipal systems, we will build it and turn it over to the
okay.
township and the DPW.
That's what I was thinking, just because I bill for them.
Yep.
And then back to what Judy was asking about, because I think I brought up the, mitigating the earth movement. If I can just ask staff to make sure with soil and erosion that whatever we put into our thing will also be acceptable to them, for them to use that money. Just because, like you said, the one unit down on the bay, soil and erosion didn't have a problem with it, but we did. And Leslie worked really hard trying to get them to.
My understanding
mitigate
is
that.
if you put the note on your approval, they'll make that a condition of their permit.
Okay,
So-
all right. I was just trying to reiterate make sure we have access to that money. Because I could see, the developer saying, oh, you know what, I've too much, and we have a big pile of dirt like what's left there now, so.
It's only because the last 2 or 3 have left it like that, yeah.
Yeah, I know, but we're
No,
trying
I
to be
know,
better,
it's-
we're trying to be better.
I'm getting scared. Why do people keep walking away from that site after time and time again?
Yeah,
So it's a beautiful site.
I mean, it's ever since I've been here, well,
I know.
even just before I came, somebody walked away from it,
I know,
so
yeah.
it's like, I
Yeah.
don't understand. I'm good otherwise.
Tracy, would that be under, where staff has provided a set of conditions applied to a motion recommending, or a motion of approval, recommending approval? Would that be one of those conditions? Is that like condition 3 that you're referring to? Is that, or on page 31 there?
Yes, but I
Okay.
think what Claire had indicated is we don't need to have it sodded and leveled.
Okay.
I'm
That's what I
fine with what Petra had recommended, because that kind of coincides with what soil and erosion does. And if that's where we're going to have the enforcement of it, then that's good to me. So I don't know if we need to remove that condition or
So,
just leave it.
I think that we could just amend it to say stabilize with seed and mulch as opposed to the
Okay,
sodded.
Seed
was-
and mulch.
And that was, it is
Petra.
consistent with soil and erosion language. And then install erosion control blanket on slopes greater than 3 to 1. But I can certainly check with Faith and just make sure that.
Yeah, I would just make sure that that's going to be reciprocated, just, you know, I believe what you say, I'm just like, we want to make sure because we've had the problem, so.
so would the conditions say, like you said, stabilize and then erosion 3 to 1, da-da-da-da-da, in collaboration with soil erosion? Is that what the condition would say?
I wasn't aware of any
Okay.
collaboration
All
with
right.
soil erosion, but I can check with them and see.
Okay.
Well, and then condition number 6 is kind of that catch-all that does reference soil erosion.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think sometimes what we run into is the problem with before, the site plan's been approved, but the land use permit hasn't been issued yet, and the site needs to be rectified, so.
Yeah. Yeah, just, I mean, I guess I'm okay with using the verbiage that Petra suggested and having staff coordinate that or confirm it with soil erosion as far as to do the approval tonight. You know, don't put us in a place where we can't get out of.
So what would that language be for 3? I guess that's what I think we need to hit.
It's
Yeah,
the
the-
language.
It would say, any earth movement not completed within the site plan review timeframe shall be stabilized with seed and mulch and install erosion control blanket on slopes greater than 3 to 1.
Okay. I guess for my comments, I think it looks, site plan looks fine to me. I quite honestly, I do think it's unfortunate that as we go through some of these developments that we run into these issues of inability to make motorized and non-motorized connections. I think the intent on a lot of these, and this is not unusual, this isn't the only site we're dealing with this, but it seems like we're dealing with this on residential and commercial ones. And it's something that we just have to work to anticipate, particularly when we see that developments are only partially done and then not completed. And I think it's ultimately those connections are important in terms of creating better community. Also, it alleviates some of the challenges that we have related to traffic and so forth. And it's just something we'll just have to be more vigilant in terms of working to have those connections made. But other than that, I'm okay with the site plan. I think it's good. I'd be interested in entertaining any type of motion for consideration staff has provided us. Well, you can do it under public comment, but we don't have a public hearing right at the moment. I mean, we've had discussion, on this before, so you can do that after the public comment period after our business is done. Any consideration?
I'll take a stab at it. I would make a motion to approve site plan review 10-21 Brigantine Apartments as recommended, subject to the staff's finding of facts, with the new verbiage for number 3. And conditions 1 through 6. Does that, I think that covers it.
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion by Bartlett, seconded by Edley. Any comments or discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thanks so much for all the staff and just work. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks, you too.
Moving on, we're going to SPR 11-21, Special Land Use 5-21, Stellar Hospitality. Discussion only, public hearing will occur in January. Claire, do you want to start with some comments?
Sure. So, as some of you recall, I know there's at least 3 new planning commission members, maybe more, but in 2018, the Stellar Hospitality, the site plan was approved by the planning commission as it was site plan review and special land use permit. The special land use permit component is for the drive-through piece of the retail. And the site plan has since expired, and so the applicant is coming back for approval. And the site plan is the same as what was presented, so there has not been any changes to the site plan that was approved in 2018. It's an 8-acre site, so it's, I think, 5 or 6 different parcels. They've got 2 extended stay hotels. It's a combined total of 243 rooms. And then there's the retail component as well. So I've got a number of comments in the findings of fact that I'd be happy to go through now, or I can go into some of the more detailed piece after the applicant makes a presentation, whatever your preference is.
Yeah, why don't we allow for him to do a little
Okay.
presentation, and we can get more into the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Andy Andre, Triumph Engineering, 10775 South Saginaw, Suite D, Grand Blanc, Michigan. I think as Claire had mentioned, this is a restart of a project that was previously approved. We had received levels of permits from outside agencies as well, but with the expiration of the site plan, we're coming back, looking to get this thing back started again. The timetable would be, optimally, we look for this coming spring. As she had mentioned, I want to, maybe for the benefit of new planning commission members, kind of run down a little bit about the development of the project, how it's situated, some of the key features that are associated with it. So as it currently sits, the buildings were removed, the site was removed, demolition was done. We're looking at, as she had mentioned, 2 hotels along with a retail Residence Inn, which is a Marriott product, Staybridge Suites, which is an IHG, that's the parent company for Holiday Inn, and then also a retail 8692 square feet that would be located at the eastern end of the property with the special land use. That's what triggers special land use with a drive-through. One be a multi-tenant with an end cap drive-through. When we look at the access that comes into the property, we do have frontage along the highway, which is MDOT. We have received MDOT approval. We supplied that information over to Claire. We just have to submit bonds in order to move forward at this point. Road Commission as well was coming off of 4 Mile, so we do have an extension that comes off of 4 Mile. The shape of the property is, because there are a number of different lots that are being combined as part of the project, we do have that connectivity over to 4 Mile. We are proposing the improvements through there, curb and gutter, road, lighting through there. We also will have cross-connection with the adjacent property. Hopscotch is immediately next door, so we have that cross-connection that we've provided within the plans themselves already. We're issued a permit on from the Road Commission on that. When we re-engaged the project, we did send out information to all the agencies, and there was a little modification that they wanted to be made, and so we've made that, and so we'll just get that permit re-upped again as well. One of the big components, when we look at that, is the stream that was across the property. As part of that, we are proposing a stream relocation, basically from the southern end of the property, near where the trail comes across there's an existing culvert that crosses the highway. The stream used to kind of meander a little bit, almost closer to a direct path northwest. As part of the permit application and the permit that we did receive from Eagle, the stream relocation is going to take a little bit of a longer path. It's more meandering, and it also has mitigation measures as part of that relocation as well. So again, we did receive a permit from Eagle for the relocation, Part 301, 303, inland lakes and streams, and also for the wetlands that were there. And we are doing mitigation within that stream bank as well. There is a culvert crossing that has been installed already. That's with the access from 4 Mile Road. One of the conditions of the Eagle permit was there's a significant portion of the property that we've engaged with them under conservation easement. So that area that has been executed, and that area basically then will remain undeveloped then in perpetuity. With regard to some of the utilities, the stormwater detention, stormwater in general, I guess, is we're collecting the runoff. We have a number of catch basins, and we're bringing it to a centralized location where we have an underground detention system. Prior to it going into that underground detention system, we have mechanical pretreatment units that'll take out any of the sediment, debris, that type of thing. We've included details as well on the plan. We did receive our stormwater permit through the township engineer previously. I think Claire has sent that over to them again, and they had no objections, and when we're ready to start, they'll reissue that same permit. Because again, we're not changing anything. After we're doing the stormwater detention, so it'll hold the water, and then we have a restricted release metered out to the relocated stream bank. We have been engaged with DPW, with the county DPW quite a bit on the water and sanitary. I believe as of Friday, we received information on fees associated with that, so they've approved the plans as well. So, again, we didn't change anything when it came to the plans themselves, but we understand that some of the conditions have changed, and also, some of the needs have changed as well as with the agency. So we made sure to re-engage with each one of the agencies to make sure that we're either extending permits or we're going to be reissued permits as we come along. So I understand that we'll be back in January as part of the special land use, but if there's anything further that I can answer as discussion comes up, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Claire, did you want to make any comments?
Sure. You'll see, I have a couple comments on the findings, and I've talked with Andy, with the applicant, a little bit about these, and so a lot of these are going to be addressed subsequently, so you'll see some of these, some of the areas in red will be addressed before you in January. Did want to just mention the uses, the retail or drive-through uses are not specified, so those will need to be approved by the zoning administrator prior to issuing a land use permit, just because we have, some uses that are permitted and some that are not in regional business district. So I had flagged the fact that the buildings are only about 45 feet from the stream. The, like the Eagle Wetlands Viewer that I had used identified it as a trout stream, but I did follow up, talked with Heather Hedinger with DNR, and so she did verify that that portion of the stream is not a trout stream. Therefore, it would not require that 50-foot setback as what our ordinance requires in the regional business district. I'm going to come back to the driveways piece. I talked with Andy about putting a 6-foot privacy fence on the east side of the drive-through. That's one of our requirements for special land use permit for drive-throughs, and there's nothing, behind them to the south, so I don't see a need for any type of fencing, but putting a privacy fence just to separate that drive-through from the adjacent commercial use. So he's planning to add that. We had a concern that the lighting plan doesn't meet foot candle requirements, so that's being addressed. We've got foot candles that exceed 1 at the property lines right now, so that's going to be addressed for the next meeting. Another issue was just there's some uplighting that I had noticed, and those uplighting fixtures are for lighting the American flag, and so Andy did send along a portion from United States Code, Chapter 1, just basically it's best practice to only display the flag from sun up to sundown. If you're going to have it, 24/7, it should be lit. So, but this is not, this wouldn't adhere to our ordinance, so I don't know if there's other options for lighting the flag, if it could be downward lit, or if, there's other ways to maybe meet the requirements of the ordinance, but also properly light the flag. Also waiting to see some plans for the signage, just the lighting, whether that's building mounted as well as the monument signs, as well as the dimensions of the signage prior to site plan approval. The dumpster enclosure, they're just going to make a slight modification to meet ordinance standards. There's a proposed driveway connection, and that's to the property to the east. Right now, it's right on US 31, and the ordinance requires that it's at least set back 30 feet from US 31. And that would just be a future connection upon redevelopment of the property to the east. And so the reason that it's up front there is because there's a building, basically, that runs that whole length of the property line to the east. So we would recommend that the access connection be moved back 30 feet or more from US 31, but the exact location would be contingent on the redevelopment of that property and where buildings and stuff are located. So I think we can probably allow some flexibility on where that future access connection is. And then the last piece is on the driveways. So the applicant is proposing 2 driveways. Section 412, which is Regional Business District of the ordinance, states that only 1 driveway is permitted per development. However, if there's at least 400 feet of frontage, which this exceeds 400 feet of frontage, there can be an additional driveway. However, there's a requirement that the separation needs to be at least 400 feet. Right now, that separation is about 370 feet. The reason for the 370 is because it lines up with driveways across the street, and so my understanding is that was MDOT recommendation, and that's for safety standards, is to have that. But unfortunately, our ordinance doesn't allow that flexibility to approve additional driveway that's less than 400 feet. So I think there's a few options that the Planning Commission could explore, whether that's a variance going before the ZBA prior to site plan approval, whether there's some opportunity to have just 1 driveway entrance and have, some vehicular circulation internally, or whether there is some opportunity to separate those driveways by 400 feet. So those would kind of be the options at this point based on our ordinance. And I have just read correspondence from MDOT. I haven't spoken with MDOT yet.
Okay, thank you. I guess if there's any comments or questions from the Planning Commission, also if you had any questions of the applicant as well. I don't know if Tracy, if you had anything?
Yeah, just because of what I heard at the site plan,
Site visit.
review, sorry. Kind of goes back to the same discussion we had in the previous applicant. I heard tonight that there has been quite a bit of stormwater coming off of the site, and I understand because it stalled and it's been sitting there for 2 years and they cleared it and all of that. But I would like to see us do something to mitigate something like that happening again. You know, if this gets approved again and then they stall for another 2 years, we need to have something in place so that the existing businesses, or, I mean, it could be other than just this, this applicant or this project, but to not impact those existing businesses, because what I heard tonight, you know, they've had to shut the door, you know, close the business because the water is so high, and I don't know if they, you know, talked to soil erosion when it was happening or anything, or Eagle, or if there was anything that could be done, but I would think that there's something we could do to mitigate that while they're in the process of building, because that shouldn't happen. I mean, and I'm sure it wasn't their intent, you know, I'm sure they wanted to be open by now, so, but I think there needs to be something in our approval that takes care of that, or attempts to take care of it anyway.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what that is, so I don't know if somebody has better ideas, but that concerns me.
Andy, what's the timing on that in terms of the relocation of the stream and everything like that, in terms of the overall project?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So that really is the first thing that has to be done. So the relocation of the stream, so the culvert that was installed, that some of you had an opportunity to see when you were there, that was the first part. Now it's actually to go through and do the relocation. And when you look at the stream relocation mitigation plans were included in what you have here, you can see it's pretty detailed. And so that really is the intrinsic thing that needs to be done first. That's one of the things that we would do right away in the spring. And I think for the stormwater, so I had an opportunity to go I sat with Matt, and he showed me a video of some of it. And we looked at it, and you go, yeah, there's flooding. There's no two ways about it, and that needs to be improved upon. And I made a call to the construction director right there, who's going to be handling the project, and said, you have to take special attention to this, and you have to make sure that this is taken care of. I think, and then at the same time as we were looking at the video, we noticed the catch basin that was over in Don's drive-through property, it was bubbling up. And so I
there's multiple things.
think it was it was probably just, you know, it's one of those cataclysmic things that just occur. There's probably a lot of water. There really isn't anywhere for it to go. Maybe it's surcharged up. It's a bad condition.
Right.
However, and I made it clear that we are not to make it any worse, right? And if it's a condition that just happens, that's, you know, act of God.
Right.
But, you know, we have got to address that. And I made it clear, you know, after seeing that video and talking to Matt, that it has to be done.
And I appreciate that, I just, on our side, we
Yeah.
have to do something to make sure that if you're stalled for another 2 years, that it doesn't go on, you know?
Honestly, I say this, I empathize with your position because it's not really a soil erosion issue. It's not really an Eagle issue. It's kind of this thing that sits in flux.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how
I'm not
best you handle
sure
it.
either, but I'd like to see us try to do something,
Right.
you know? Just like the site didn't have a problem with dirt piles sitting there for 2 years, but it sat there with the land cleared, so there was more water going through it because there was no trees left to
Right.
soak it up
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff.
You know,
so.
and when you get caught in that situation where, it's, the condition that it's in, you don't have a clear pathway for the water to go either. And
Right.
That's what I noticed when he showed me the video. It just kind of looked like it had just spread and it
Right.
water takes the path of least resistance. That is
Exactly.
that's what it does.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of found its way.
Yeah.
Now, I think, again, I think there were probably some other things that were going on at the same time.
And I
But-
agree.
But our goal is the first thing that we would want to do is get that stream relocated and make sure, because I think if the water's flowing out in that area, it just improves everything.
Right.
And so,
And I would agree. It's just unfortunate
Yeah.
that it's sat like this, but I would like to see something in place so that if it sits for another 2 years, that there's something done to help mitigate that. Whatever, if it's a bond or if it's.
Yeah, I mean, I know that with a stormwater permit, there's, I believe, some, if there's violation of that stormwater permit. I hadn't heard of any of the flooding. I don't know if that's something that came to our office with complaints, but that I
Yeah,
have not heard of that.
I don't think it came, because I had never heard it either, and- which I would have thought.
Yeah,
In
Matt
the
did not
office, I
call
would have
me.
at least heard about it, but, so that really concerned me after I heard it, so. But other than that, I mean, I wasn't around when this was approved the first time, so when I went through it, it looks pretty thorough, and I'm trusting the other agencies to take care of, the stream and all of that stuff. But, so I am a little concerned about the driveway thing though, because we don't have a way to
Wait,
approve it the way it is what you're telling us, correct? So our only, I'm thinking the least difficult way to fix it is to do a variance. And, because he explained at the site review that MDOT, and you had it in your notes, that they approved it, and I'm thinking, okay, if MDOT's approved it, then why would we stand in the way of that kind of thing? So, I guess recommending the zoning appeal would be about the only thing we could do.
and I don't think we'd be objected to that for the reason that I think is justified. The thing that we would probably not want to do is delay the public hearing, because I think I don't know if the notification has already been made or not, but it's something that obviously with the timing that you have to do, if it's something that we came to that point, just like I had heard for the previous submission, if there were changes by the road commission, then it would come back to, to the planning commission. I would propose something similar, that, listen, we go get the variance, and if anything changes, then we come back. So maybe, as we move forward in January, maybe that would be one of the conditions, a variance on that. And when you look at the plan, I just want to be clear. So if you look at the plan and you go, yep, I see where those driveways are. Sure enough, they're lined up across the street. Hey, there's another driveway. Why not just move it? Part of it is if you look at those, we lined them up with the commercial uses.
Right.
The one if we shifted it another 30 foot down, say we became in compliance with the township standard, that's a residential style drive. And so it doesn't match as well. So you're still conflicted with the commercial turns. And so really that's what it is. So if that's I appreciate what you're saying. MDOT has reviewed it, approved it, and they're ready to issue a permit. You still have an ordinance.
Right.
So if it's something that we could do condition on, a variance, I think we'd be open to that.
Anything else? Okay. Renee?
Well, she already addressed my main thing was the flooding as well, because I actually did witness it personally. We frequent down there, and I was amazed, and I at that point had no idea why it was doing that. It seemed to be a newer issue. So I like the way I mean, I like your suggestions, and I think it's good that, just to avoid, this in the future, I like that. I also, what was my other thing? What was something else? I guess as far as the driveway, again, I agree. I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm actually newer to the, as a commissioner, and I did have an opportunity to sit on the zoning board of appeals for a few meetings before they swiped me over here. And we ran into a similar situation where our ordinance didn't quite meet, the plan, but the fire department in that case was saying, hey, we're good with it. So I found it very interesting, because what I'm finding out about all of this is there's these conflicts. Like, this ordinance doesn't support this, but the MDOT's okay with it, or the fire department's okay with it. So I'm kind of learning the process here as to what's right and what's not. I tend to, and I don't know if this is right, wrong, or indifferent, but I tend to think, obviously, we need to support our ordinances, but when another, like MDOT or a fire department says they're good with it, where do we, I mean, I guess where I'm going with this is that maybe it does need to go to the, for a variance, because how do you resolve something that the ordinance doesn't support it, but this, they're saying this is the safest route. And when I hear that, I think, well, we should take that into consideration, that it's the safest solution. So that's where I stand with the driveways, is that I guess it should probably go, for a variance. And then my only other thing, I guess I was listening to the flagpole thing, and I thought, wow, who thinks about this stuff until it comes up at a meeting? I mean, I'm like, we need to let Old Glory shine. But, so I don't know what the answer is to that, but, obviously, we can make suggestions, come up with solutions. I don't know how you would downlight a flag, but I don't know. But it should be lit. So that's all I have.
Dan?
I guess some of my concern is just because I guess I follow these things pretty innately throughout northern Michigan, and the financing dealing with hotels is pretty tough. And you got two planned to go in succinctly. And labor shortages, yada, yada. That's a business decision, that's not a us decision. So I just, what you're getting into, or they should.
So, no, I mean, that's what we're here to discuss. So financing has been approved for the project. So
Okay.
there is financing in order. Truthfully, I don't think, a project of this magnitude you could do, without having solid financing behind it. Unfortunately, as everybody experienced, and especially in the hospitality industry, all financing was cut. We had projects that were under construction, banks came in and said, sorry, we're pulling your loans. I mean, like, literally that happened. I think things have turned the corner. The things that I think that makes a little bit of difference here, obviously, is the location, is the market study more than supports the hotels here. I know you guys had a really robust summer, and hotels and Airbnb, it's hard to come by. So I think that lends itself a little bit more to people financing it. They might take another look at, hey, you're in a different community that doesn't support it as much, it might pull back, but on this project, I can tell you it was very attractive.
Yeah. And I guess part of that leads me to, they have to have the wherewithal to pull it off, to do two at once. I get the market demand significantly, but also the impact on the stormwater and the relocation of an entire stream, and I know Judy's gonna get into this, I would bet, but I would love to see some more detail on the rest of the site. It just, from the landscaping plan, it kinda addresses the parking area, but not everything buffering around it to the south, unless maybe I just didn't look at the right sheet. So I was kind of looking for more detail in that, because there is a sea of concrete getting put over what is a total, open landscape right now. So to me, if you can concentrate on kind of some low impact design practices within that on-site parking area, I think that'd be massive, especially just given the water concern. I mean, as I was looking through it, you have like 20 or more water separators that go underneath the parking lot and the buildings itself, if there could be some type of a maintenance plan that goes along with those that could be included as well, because that's going to be a massive undertaking that locally in town, I don't know if we have anybody that does that.
Right. That's a good point. And so as part of the plan, we actually did include storm maintenance plan, sheet C 5.5.
Okay.
And then we did include the details of the actual units themselves that we're proposing. And we've used these in other locations. And I can tell you, they've come a long way. You know, these type of units have come a long way in how they've been developed, how they operate, and even then on the maintenance. They are really low maintenance when it comes to, you have to check on them, you do have to check on them. You have to clean them out, you do have to do that. It typically, before, I would say going back about 10 years ago, you used to probably have to contract with outside maintenance services, and they would come in, they'd bring the vac truck, you guys have seen it, they come up. They've changed the design of these units to be less intrusive like that. And so, local people can be, when I say that, even workers that are maintenance people that are staffed at the hotel, that are staffed there, could be trained to keep track on this. And that really is the best way to do it, because they're there daily, and they can see some of the changes.
Right. I saw the breakout of the mechanism itself, but I didn't get into the fine print as far as the strategy. So if that's built in there, awesome. The use I'm not so concerned about. I do just for general purposes, because this is, I don't know how many times I've said it, another indication of, you know, how many key is this in total between the two buildings?
255?
Okay.
Or 245, 245.
245.
Yeah.
Okay, so in total, I'm just saying, this is probably going to be north of, you know, bare minimum of $40 million investment to this site, right? So how many now projects have we missed taking advantage of capturing this revenue to put it back into this area that we continue to talk about needs improvement? So this is not a you decision, this is just us conversation now. It's just one more massive improvement that's going to go into this corridor where we have aspirations of improving this, but haven't dedicated financial resources towards putting our money where our mouth is. And so, you know, this is just another deal that's going to come in, and we're kind of missing the boat on it without going to a bond or something specific to improve that corridor, just FYI. Because I know that's happening downstate, and I know it's happening in a lot of other places. But we haven't set that up just yet. Overall, I applaud the enthusiasm. It's a pretty aggressive strategy. I think from terms of efficiency, you'd probably have to do them both at once to keep the people moving and do the whole site at once. I just don't know how you'd afford it otherwise.
What it comes down to is, because we have locations that we have 2 hotels. We actually have one in Dearborn that has 3 hotels on the same property. Once you capture the trades, you got to keep them. And you go from one to the other, one to the other. That's how you approach a project like this.
Yeah, just more detail, I think, in terms of that watershed mitigation and just what measures can be done to soak that up. I know it's just, we're really close to the bay and we're already seeing issues elsewhere. And if there's some other creative ways besides just, you know, picking out the sediment and pushing the water away, it'd be awesome.
Yep, we did include bioswale as well, as part of the project, so we did do that. That was one of the, when I met with the Watershed Council, that was one of the things that they brought up, said, hey, could you do that? And sure enough, we were able to do that. So we did that. We changed our storm design where it was, hey, along that drive from 4 Mile, you know, catch basin, you know, just like you would see a traditional, we end up putting curb openings in, we'll do spillways, and we have bioswales that'll at least capture that portion of it.
I'm good.
Okay. Judy?
Yeah. I do like the bioswale thing that you are doing. If those can be, you know, maybe another one added someplace to mitigate that stormwater, because I'm concerned about that too. And maybe with a landscape plan, as Dan indicated, you know, we could help absorb some of that water and add a few more buffers and trees, et cetera, there would help soak that up a little bit, because there's quite a bit of wetland there. Regarding the landscaping too, please do look at the list again. I know that our last applicant was concerned about that, but please look at that list and make sure. Barberry worries me a lot. That is invasive, so if we could look at that list and try to do native plantings in there. I'm sure the watershed, I'm sure Heather spoke with you about that as well. The night sky compliance, I think, is critical. We really are trying to mitigate the light pollution because we do have beautiful night sky looking over the bay, et cetera. So, and I appreciate you working regarding the flag, et cetera, because I think there is a balance there. So thank you, and we could work on that. The thing that I need to be refreshed on was page, and maybe Claire, you can help me, page 98, where we talked about the maximum height was 50 feet, and we exceed that, and then when I look at the ordinance, G doesn't refer to that. So can you refresh?
There was a typo, so
Okay.
that was my mistake, sorry.
That's okay.
So basically, regional business district, the maximum height on the south side is 50 feet. However, if there's additional open space landscaping provided, then there can be height bonuses all the way up to 80 feet. So the applicant has met those requirements. I think it's 74 or 72 is what they're going to, but they can go all the way up to 80 with the additional.
Because I was looking at lighting, and I'm like,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I had
thank you
a typo on the site,
for
yeah.
clarifying that one. So yeah, if we could, continue down that road that you are with the landscaping plan, and even make it better, that's what I would suggest, so thank you. Okay.
Carl?
My only question was about the stormwater, and I think other people have brought it up plenty here. So anyway, I think that we can address that, both what Tracy said about the possibility that something is stalled and then we have additional flooding, but also just in general about, handling the stream and any potential stormwater overflow.
Paul?
Yeah, most of my comments were in the site meeting, and I think the next time we look at this, we talked about the charging stations that you were planning on.
Yeah.
So if you could show where those are. And then I did find where those grease traps were, so they're fine. Other than that, I think most of that, one question. What is the timing on this? When do you start, and when do you think you're going to finish?
Right, so I can tell you if things move along and we're able to move along with the township and then get those permits again, which we anticipate we would start this spring. And I would say this is every bit of a 2-year construction. Yeah,
Okay.
I think we would plan every bit of 2 years.
22 to 24 then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I have one more question for you. In the stream, what's the soil? Sandy loam out there? Is that why you're doing woody debris?
Yeah, I think, so we had a wetland consultant,
Yeah.
King and McGregor. They worked pretty diligently with Eagle, then MDEQ, on coming up with that mitigation plan. We went through several iterations. Yeah.
Okay, so when you curve the stream,
Yes.
sometimes the stream could pick up speed around those bends. Are you going to do that woody debris in
Yes,
some of those sandy loam areas?
Exactly right. There's
Okay.
I think there's some stabilization that's called out for those areas, yeah, specifically for that.
Okay, and if you need more, you'll stabilize as needed, possibly?
Absolutely. So, yeah,
Okay,
that's a good point. Let me just touch on that, because I think that's an important factor, is when we were issued the Eagle permit for this, that included the relocation, the mitigation, and then as part of that permit, there's a post-installation monitoring period that we're required to do that. So that gives, time for for the stream to operate, and it gives you then some ability to say, you know what, we need to do a little bit more here, this looks like it's doing well, and so that's a requirement of that permit.
Good. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. I just had some comments and just wanted to kind of summarize what some of the subjects that we covered. The issue related to the stormwater and some of the adjacent properties, I'm wondering, I didn't notice any stormwater retention basins on those adjoining properties, so it makes me think that what may have contributed, and I don't know what the situation was out there, but it could be that when the subject property was disturbed, that may have was acting as allowing for some of that drainage to go onto that adjacent property, and maybe when they disturbed the site, they might have blocked some of that ability for that water to sheet drain across the property into that area, because I didn't notice any retention basins out there for those adjacent property.
Gravel.
Yeah, so and I'm looking at some of those elevations now, and it seems like once this stream goes in, it should allow for that drainage to go into the stream location area. On the driveways, it seems to me that if there's going to be a variance sought, or if, I mean, obviously, the design can be adjusted appropriately, but if there is going to be a variance, it should be that the variance is sought first by the ZBA prior to Planning Commission approval or consideration. I don't think we want to make it subject to approval of the Planning Commission action. We need to know if that's a viable alternative before we approve the entire site plan. So I think that should be, and I'm not sure what the schedule of that, but it seems to me that that would need to go first.
And I think the next ZBA meeting would probably be the January meeting. They meet the second Tuesday of the month.
Well, we could still hold the public hearing, but it doesn't make sense that we would approve something subject to a ZBA approval as a planning commission.
Yeah, that's, so legal counsel in the past has said that there's nothing legally prohibiting us from doing that, but that it's best practice to have ZBA approval prior to.
Right.
So I know that the planning commission has before said, we approve it contingent on ZBA approval, but my understanding is best practice would be to have that variance prior to site plan approval.
Can I ask a question in regards to that? So with MDOT giving them the approval for the driveways the way they are, they would have, if we in fact, or they decide they want to, instead of going for a zoning appeal or variance, they want to move the driveway the 30 feet, however they do that, then they have to go back to MDOT to get reapproved, right?
We would.
So either way, you're going to have to delay some way, shape, or form, I would assume. Okay. I just didn't know the process.
Well, either way, I mean, if there's a variance that's sought, I mean, whether it's even done before this action or after if we had it subject to, because I would think that we would be before the next ZBA meeting, or
Yeah, you would be 1 week before.
Okay.
The January ZBA meeting.
So the approval would then be February.
yeah. Okay. Well, it's something to consider. Like I said, there's nothing you can do about it, but it seems to me it kind of puts us in a situation where it allows basically the ZBA the power of approving the project or not.
Right.
But that's fine. The flagpole lighting, I think there are light poles that would you have lights up above the flag, so that can be addressed in that way. The Corridor Improvement Authority concept that you're bringing up, I think we are moving on RRC, so I think that's we're getting there. I agree with you, and I think we talked about that the first time a project was approved, and there's another hotel site too that was also mentioned as well, so. But I think that RRC is the mechanism to work through that, at least that pushes it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think if we are also just, if we're successful with this MDARD grant, there's a large chunk of money that we can use for engaging business owners, hiring a consultant, and just kind of building support and kind of having it be more of a business owner initiated
Right.
partnership with the township, I think would be
We
a
looked
good.
at that concept several years ago. I think Doug was involved, actually. And, yeah, had a lot of resistance to it at that time, even though I think the board thought it was a good idea, but.
Education is key.
Resistance from the business owners?
Pardon?
Resistance from who?
Yes, the business owners, at that time. I mean, it was years ago.
Hmm.
I think RC brought it to Doug, and Doug brought it to the board, and so.
Well, and I think it's important to, well, certainly the property owners have to be engaged.
Yes.
And I think it's also important, what's the need, what's the application of the Corridor Improvement Authority? So what are the improvements and that type of thing? And quite honestly, from the township standpoint, I think it's understanding that that corridor is our primary commercial corridor, knowing that would be locked up in some type of a tax increment financing plan. You got to understand that ramifications in terms of revenue and so forth for the township's sake. So it's a matter of balancing it out and seeing. I think it gets back to what is the end goal, what are the improvements needed for that corridor. It's certainly that type of mechanism could really advance that corridor and in terms of some of the improvements that could be done. But I think that's certainly, I think that's the process in terms of the redevelopment ready communities process is going through that and kind of sets the township at a point when, you know, that something will be more seriously considered at appropriate time. I don't have any other comments. At this point, do we just take a motion to set the public hearing, or that's already?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate to set the public hearing.
Okay. So that would be for our January 2022 meeting, unless there was any other comments or questions of the applicant or
I just
staff?
had one quick thing, and maybe I just missed it, but the TART trail does run just to the south of the property. Did you have kind of a identified connection to that?
We do.
Outside of that?
Yeah.
Maybe I just didn't see it.
Yeah, we sure do. So we have that connection along the south that would connect down to the trail.
Is it right in the middle that runs next to like a waste facility or a?
It actually runs right next to the dumpster.
Yeah, that's what I thought I was looking at. Like, maybe not next to the dumpster, you know what I'm saying?
It's upwind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was, but I wasn't sure.
We struggled a little bit, I'll give you a little bit of background. We struggled a little bit with that because there's still regulated wetlands in that location, so we had to locate the walkway outside of the wetlands that are still there. So there's a limited space that we could get that.
Gotcha.
If you-
I mean, we're moving a stream. Could we put a bridge over it while we're doing a stream? I'm just saying. I'm just
Well, you
being coy,
could put
but.
it down near the access drive from 4 Mile.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's kind of where it's at now.
Yeah. And it's kind of crummy today. If you're doing the whole corridor, like. Food for thought. A lot of people blow through there, and if you don't mark the path well, it'll be marked for you in the future. I promise you that.
Very true.
John, are you thinking that the ZBA then will meet before we do?
No.
No, they won't.
So
But, I guess it doesn't really matter ultimately. I mean, there's nothing illegal about it. It's just more of what would be appropriate on that. I don't know what the feeling is of the planning commission.
I was just clarifying, so
Yeah.
I don't know what people.
You suggested we could hold the public hearing, but not do an approval until after the ZBA,
Right,
which would be February.
right. That would put them back another month, though. So if you
Right.
are wanting to move quickly on it, I mean, action at our January meeting would be, allow for that. Although I don't know, would that, the action at our meeting, would that be sufficient time for the zoning board of appeals to meet and take action on this?
I think that that would be sufficient, so long as the applicant, put in an appeal to the ZBA a month in advance of the January meeting.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think we
we'd
could
be
work
looking
with
like-
you on an application.
Yeah, still this week, possibly putting in an application, if that's the case.
And then if for some reason that variance is not granted, then they'd have to alter the design or return back, well, most likely would probably have to return back here or something like to that
So
nature.
the way that I think about this is, we've had, a little bit of time discussing it. If we said today and we said, well, go, you have to meet the ordinance, I have to revise the plans, and I have to come back anyways. If we went to the ZBA and they said, no, revise the plans, then I have to come back anyways. In some form or another, I would be coming back. So if it's possible to, to have it at that January meeting as part of the public hearing and make a condition of it, I think that would be something that we would like to see that. Because the only reason I say that is we have, I think, some substantial justice there, knowing that MDOT, who has jurisdiction over the right-of-way, has approved it, and really it was done, in conjunction with them, so.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to set the public hearing for January and get the ball rolling, and then, if anything, the applicant will get more feedback from the general public, so if there's other comments and you're gonna make changes anyway, you might as well hear it from everybody, not just us. I think that was a motion.
Yes.
Set the public hearing.
Set the public hearing for January 4th, 2022.
Wow.
Any support?
I'll support it.
Okay, motion by Leonard, support by Bartlett, to schedule a public hearing for the Stellar application for January 4th, 2022. Any discussion? Okay, all those for, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on, we have public comment. So if anybody would want to make any public comment regarding anything on the agenda. Yes, if you want to come to the podium, please. Or she was, sorry, sir, I was waving first.
Hello, I'm Sally Yerksen, and I live at 2228 Kakana Court, Traverse City, Michigan. And we own some property that's adjacent to the Stellar parcel with Ernest Schaff, who was Don's Drive-In, and it's a square in the back. And the first thing I'd like to say is that, as a developer from the past, I would be in full support of those second entrance. I think it's a safety issue for the people that are going to be using that property. I think that the Stellar development is going to be a really important part of the redevelopment of that area. And that corridor has been run down and needs somebody to come in there and to bring some energy to that area, and it will be very positive energy. I also would like to point out that the wetlands that occurs in that particular area occurs for a lot of reasons, Mother Nature one of them, but also for man-made reasons. The highway and the railroad tracks trap water in that area. And when you take the vegetation away and a developer gets caught, like this particular one did, with economic situations and the COVID situation, which nobody could have anticipated, there was no intent by their part to cause those issues, but we can work as a team to come up with some really cool new ways and innovative ways to even show to our region how to handle that kind of a situation. And I guess I'm here to do a throwdown as a property owner adjacent to him and behind him, because we have some acreage behind there that is, we think would be really special and should be developed for residential. that we, as a team, can really do something major and important here. And since they're coming in with the big guns, it's our chance to work with them and to be a part of something that will help change that corridor completely.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, you go ahead.
You can go ahead, he's been waiting.
Yeah.
No.
My name is Roland Bartley, and I'm 1880 Vanderlip Road. Just moved in end of August, and didn't know about this Brigantine apartment development. Had I known, it definitely would have influenced my purchase decision. I don't know if I would have gone through or not, maybe. This is a great area. I really like living here now, but when I see that development, for myself, my neighbor immediately to my left and right, when I look out my kitchen window, I'm going to see the three-story apartment building. When I look out my living room window, I'm going to see the three-story apartment building. And when I'm sitting on my deck and I look across the street, I'm going to see this three-story apartment building. So I don't want to have just say a knee-jerk reaction to say, don't do any development, because I understand the need for revenue and making proper amenity choices for the community. But for me personally, it's a negative. I'm concerned about the traffic on Vanderlip, noise pollution and light pollution, especially at night. So, my 2 cents is, I know you already approved it, but it's a negative to me, and when I look at the plan, it doesn't seem like there's enough setback away from the road. I didn't see if there was a berm there or not. I see some oaks and some maples, but that'll take 5 to 10 years to mature. So if there's going to be, officially I'm opposed to it, but if it's going to be there, I'd like to see some sort of accommodation for the people who are already there on Vanderlip, that we're going to look right across the street at this three-story apartment complex with the parking, and who knows if it's going to shine through my window or not, but I do have, two windows facing that side of the street. So I just wanted to kind of put, I missed the first public notice, went to the previous owner. I didn't get it till a week after the meeting, so I missed the first one. But I just wanted to kind of give my perspective as someone who's going to be directly impacted by living across the street from the apartment complex. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Stevens. I live at 2111 Crystal Ridge in Traverse City. And now, based on what I understand tonight, you have obviously approved the plan for Brigantine Apartments. Does that also include the connection with Crystal Ridge? Is that part of that decision?
So the site plan that was approved as, it
You had
has,
two. One was without a connection, one was with. Your ordinance said that he could connect. Do we know which plan you approved?
there is the plan, it shows up to your property line, but does not have an actual connection onto your property.
Okay. So does that mean that it won't happen because it's not part of the agreed-upon proposal that he's did, or is that something that can just happen when operated? I guess I'm just just want clarification on that, because I wasn't quite sure.
So there is no travel over connection to your property. It's up to the property line on the Brigantine property. That makes sense.
I'm not for sure, but maybe I just am not clear on.
So there is no legal connection or physical connection to the Crystal Ridge development.
We're supposed to be connecting our walking paths.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to determine, if that is part of your approval tonight.
It is not.
It is not.
It's up to the property line.
Okay, so it's just that's been your decision, is up to the property line.
Correct.
Okay, all right, that's what I wanted to clarify, because if it's not going to be connected, but I guess technically they may not be touching, but technically you're giving them permission. I'm trying to understand this ordinance.
You might need to call in and talk to staff to get your
Okay.
clarification.
Okay. You guys can't give it to me when you approve
This
this?
is public comment.
Okay.
So technically, we're not supposed to have conversation with,
Okay,
under
well then,
public
I just
comment,
wanted,
so-
before I went into this long spill that maybe meant nothing, I just thought I would inquire first, so I
Yeah.
apologize if I overstepped.
No, that's
But,
all right, that's
and
fine.
So I'll just go into my 2 cents then. How's that? I hope and pray that they do not connect and get permission to cross on a private property. As it was stated in the letter that was provided by the lawyer, it is private property. It'd be no different than it's property we tend to, it's property we insure. We are a site condominium, we are not connected, we're not a multifamily. We are multifamily, but we're individual, we own our structures inside and out. If we didn't have a board, we'd be a subdivision. I mean, site condos, a lot of people, developers do site condos for a very specific reason. They're way easier to get done than a subdivision. And how do I know that? I lived downstate, was married to a builder for 24 years, and we had a site condo that we did. It was called a site condo, and we got all said and done. Guess who takes care of the roads? The county. Never a board established, even though we had bylaws and everything when it started. But the people that lived there never finished and established the board. So it became a glorified subdivision. Everybody owns their own property and does their own thing. Nobody ever established it. So my point is, it'd be no different than somebody coming up and connecting to your property or your property. You know what, I'm going to come over and I'm going to play around your pond, and I'm going to use your picnic tables that you've all pitched in to put in the common area that we share. And, you know, that there's just this level of not only privacy, but it's a level of liability. You know, if they have that right to connect to us, do we have the right to go over and use their pool, their dog park, playgrounds? I mean, they can come over, and who's to say they can't be around our pond or anything like that that we happen to have on our property if they are able to connect that way? Is it then considered trespassing? Then you're looking at legal issues. Then you're going to have neighbors fighting neighbors. You talk about community and working as a community. I don't see any of this being as working as a community. Tonight, I mean, granted, I will call and talk to whomever I need to talk to, but in my mind, making those connections, I know somebody made the comment at the last hearing, school first, I think it was, something along those lines, something about
Safe routes
school.
to school.
I'm like, who's walking on Hammond? Who's walking to school on Vanderlip? I mean, there is not going to be people, if at all, crossing over to come over. Headwaters isn't connected. Headwaters isn't connected to them other than, I think, the driveway. I think they have to have an access for safety. But those are a few things that come to mind. You know, the compactor, I wish I would have had a chance to ask. I think he mentioned that hopefully that compactor won't be running continuously every day, all day. I know a couple people that are here live right by where that compactor's going to sit, so hopefully that's not going to be an issue. I am happy to hear he took my advice on the cameras. Very happy to hear that. Hopefully they do work with the road commission on traffic. Traffic is an issue. I brought it up when I was here last time. It's a huge issue. I drive it every day. And it's only going to get worse is when Alta Vista gets done and Elmbrook gets done. It's only going to get worse. So those are huge concerns for me. I just hope that however this turns out, it doesn't end up impacting us all in a negative way, that we all end up at battle with each other, not getting along, not being happy, and losing property values and causing discord in our community. And I hope everybody here that approved or they decide to make that connection can live with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on if there's any updates from any planning commissioners. Okay, not hearing none. We have upcoming meeting dates. We have our special meeting, that's the GOREC meeting on December 16th, and we are having a site visit, I believe. Is that at
4 o'clock. is
4
the-
p.m.?
is the site visit.
Okay, site visit at 4 p.m., and then is it back here?
At
for-
6:30.
At 6:30?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we also have our regular meeting, next regular meeting.
Or was was at 4:30. I would say double check the legal notice that I
it's
sent out.
4:30.
I'm
Oh, was it
sorry.
4:30?
It's 4:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then our regular meeting on January 4th at 6:30 PM here at the Township Hall. And with that, we entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would so move that we adjourn on December 7th, 2021 at, is that 8:30?
8:30 on the dot?
Yeah?
Okay, we're adjourned.